You know that feeling, right? Your phone just keeps buzzing, security alerts piling up, and it feels like you're, I don't know, trying to bail out a sinking boat with a teaspoon.
Yeah, information overload is a real thing in incident response.
Totally. So think of this deep dive as your emergency kit for exactly that situation. Today, we're getting into lesson 12. It's packed with the essentials for, well, effective cybersecurity incident response.
Right. We've pulled out the core stuff from lesson 12, the CompTIA incident response lifecycle, a bit about threat hunting, the critical methods of digital forensics, and definitely security monitoring.
Think of it as your shortcut map through the cyber threat maze.
Yeah, something like that.
Exactly. So our mission for you listening is to grab those key nuggets, those insights that make you go, aha, okay, now I get it. We want you to walk away with a clear, engaging, maybe even a digestible understanding, how to handle incidents, how to maybe even spot trouble before it starts.
Avoid the overwhelm. Focus on the important stuff.
Precisely. Okay, so let's jump in. The foundation, the CompTIA incident response lifecycle.
Right. This gives you a structure, a roadmap, basically. It's broken down into 5 main stages. Starts with preparation.
Preparation, so like getting ready before anything bad happens.
Exactly. Building resilient systems, having your plan, your resources, procedures all lined up,
Oh,
the groundwork.
makes sense. What's next?
Then you've got detection. This is when you actually spot something wrong.
Hmm.
Could be an automated alert, could be someone on the team notices something weird.
And the goal here is just finding the clues, like the indicators.
Pretty much identifying those signs that, hey, maybe a threat actor is poking around.
Okay, so detected something. Now what?
Now comes analysis.
Yeah.
This is the initial investigation phase. Your first responder jumps in and has to figure out quickie, is this real? And if it is, how bad is it? What's the initial scope?
Right. And you mentioned before there are things you shouldn't do right away.
Yeah, exactly. The focus is that initial understanding.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't just, sit back and wait for more alerts. That doesn't make sense.
No.
And you probably wouldn't immediately pull the plug on a server. You might lose critical evidence.
Ah, okay. Good point.
And, calling the CEO right away. Probably not yet. That escalation happens after you have some idea of what you're dealing with from this initial analysis.
Makes total sense. Understand first, then act. So, after analysis.
Next is containment. This is all about damage control. Stop it spreading. Secure the data. Let stakeholders know what's going on.
So the goal is basically lock things down, secure assets, minimize the impact on customers, partners, stop the attacker moving laterally.
Exactly. Secure, limit, prevent spread. So, for example, if an account's compromised, a good containment step is, bam, disable that user right away.
Huh?
Or if malware is spreading, maybe network segmentation. Create some barriers.
Gotcha. And you mentioned something about root cause here.
Right. Finding the root cause isn't really containment's job. That falls more into the analysis phase we just talked about. Containment is about stopping the bleeding now.
Right. Stop
Yeah.
bleeding.
And again, what not to do. Don't just disconnect all your hosts. That could really hamper your investigation later. You need to gather info.
Okay. Isolate the problem, but don't blind yourself. Makes sense. After containment.
That leads us to eradication. Now you go after the actual cause. You remove it, get the affected systems back to a secure state.
Eliminate the threat. The goal is getting back to secure.
Precisely. And a really key point from lesson 12 here.
Mm-hmm.
Just wiping and restoring from backup without figuring out how they got in, that's asking for trouble.
Ah, because you might just put the same vulnerability back online.
Exactly. You could be right back where you started.
Okay, so stop the spread, found the cause, got rid of it. Are we done?
Almost. Then comes recovery. This is where you carefully bring those clean, secured systems back into normal operation. You double-check, triple-check. They're actually secure and working correctly.
Okay, restore normal operations, but safely. Then what? Last step.
The final phase, and honestly, maybe one of the most vital, lessons learned.
Ah, the look back.
Yeah. You review the whole thing. What happened? How did we respond? What went well? What didn't? What needs to change? The goal is to analyze it all and actually improve your procedures so it doesn't happen again.
You know, it feels like this step might get skipped sometimes when things are hectic.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, but it happens. Teams are relieved it's over. They move on. But skipping this, you risk making the same mistakes. The quality of that lessons learned session, making it blameless, focusing on actionable steps, that's way more important than just checking a box.
Good point. Now, lesson 12 also clears up some confusion around this life cycle, right? Like things that aren't separate steps.
Exactly. It points out, for instance, isolation isn't its own stage in the CompTIA model. It's a technique you use during containment.
Ah, okay. A
Oh.
tool in the containment toolbox.
Right. And restoration. That's part of recovery, not a separate phase. And yeah, we want improvement, but that's the outcome of lessons learned, not another step itself.
So understanding that sequence prep, detect, analyze, contain, eradicate, recover, lessons learned, that's really key for handling things right. Minimizing damage, preventing repeats.
Absolutely. It provides that essential framework.
Okay, framework understood, but let's zoom in on those first critical moments. An alert pops up. What's that first responder actually doing in analysis?
All right, like we touched on, job one is confirm, is this real? Then assess the severity. Look at what's affected. Assign a priority. How bad could this be? What's the potential impact?
And reminding ourselves what not to do.
Yeah, don't just wait around hoping for more confirmation. Don't yank cables without understanding what's happening. Don't run to the execs before you've done that basic look-see. Priority is that quick initial analysis. Get your bearings.
Okay, so say that analysis points to a compromised server. What's the immediate containment goal? Like job number one for containment.
Isolate that server. Disconnect it from the network. That's the absolute first priority.
Stop it talking to anything else. Prevent spread.
Exactly. Stop the attacker moving sideways. Limit any further communication out. Other things, like calling law enforcement or starting restores. Important, yes, but they come after you've plugged that immediate hole by isolating the server.
Gotcha. And threat hunting doesn't fit here.
Right. Threat hunting is proactive. It's about looking for hidden threats. Incident response is reactive. You're dealing with something happening now. So, no, threat hunting isn't the immediate containment action.
Makes perfect sense. Stop the bleeding first. Okay, this leads right into evidence. Digital forensics. Why is it such a big deal that the evidence accurately shows what the system was like during the breach?
Oh, it's absolutely fundamental. For starters, it maintains the credibility, the integrity of your whole investigation. If your evidence isn't accurate, how can anyone trust your findings?
Right.
It validates that what you found is authentic. And if things ever go legal, accurate evidence is non-negotiable. It's tied into this concept of due process in cyber investigations.
Due process. I usually hear that in a legal context. How does it apply here?
Think of it like handling evidence at a physical crime scene. You wear gloves, you bag things carefully, you document everything. Due process in cyber means applying that same meticulous, fair handling to digital evidence, ensuring it's collected properly, analyzed objectively so it's unbiased, and ultimately admissible if needed.
So, treating digital evidence with the same seriousness as physical evidence to ensure fairness and reliability.
Precisely. And Lesson 12 notes that digital evidence is often latent. It's hidden, not obvious. You need special tools, special skills, it's digital forensics, to uncover it, interpret it, maybe find out where an attacker came from, even if they tried to cover their tracks.
And if someone messes with that evidence,
Then its integrity is shot. The whole investigation could be undermined. Tampering is a huge problem.
okay, so evidence integrity is critical.
Hmm.
How do we actually collect and preserve it the right way? I've heard the term order of volatility. What's that about?
Ah, yes. Order of volatility. It's a core principle. Basically, collect the most fragile stuff first. Data that disappears quickly, especially if the power goes out.
Like, what kind of data?
Think CPU registers, cache memory, and especially RAM, the system's active memory. That stuff vanishes fast, so you grab that before you worry about, say, hard drive data, which sticks around longer.
So it's about preventing data loss, grabbing the fleeting stuff first, not about legal rules at this point.
Exactly. The primary goal is capture volatile data before it's gone forever. It applies whether the evidence is digital or physical, really. It's just a practical guideline for evidence collection.
Okay. And what about a memory dump? Sounds dramatic. What do you get from that?
Yeah. It's essentially taking a snapshot of the computer's RAM at that exact moment. And RAM can be a gold mine for investigators.
Really? Like what?
Running processes, who the system is talking to on the network, sometimes even encryption keys that are actively being used. Lots of juicy details about what was happening right then.
But it has limits, right? It's not for everything.
Correct. It's for that immediate deep look. It's not really for analyzing trends over time. It won't help you recover files someone deleted from the hard drive. And while you might find keys, its main purpose isn't to create encrypted backups or anything like that. It's an investigative snapshot.
Got it. Snapshot of active memory. How does live acquisition fit in? Is it the same thing?
Similar goal, different approach. Live acquisition means collecting data from a system while it's still running.
Ah, okay. So the system stays on. Is that risky?
It can be. That's the main drawback highlighted in Lesson 12. Doing things on a live system could tip off the attacker that you're onto them. They might try to hide, delete things, attack more aggressively.
Right, but the benefit must be significant.
Huge benefit.
Yeah.
You get that volatile memory, the RAM contents, the stuff that's lost if you just power it down.
Yeah.
So it's a trade-off. You risk alerting the attacker to capture data. You can't get any other way.
And it doesn't mess with the hard drive data necessarily.
Generally, no. The focus is usually memory and system state, not altering the stored files on disk, though forensic tools are designed to minimize impact. And it doesn't mean physically pulling plugs, usually.
Okay. One more thing on collection. Video recording. Why video the process?
Good question. It's mainly about establishing provenance and chain of custody.
Provenance.
Yeah, proving where the evidence came from and that it was collected exactly as you say it was. The video provides a visual record showing it came directly from the scene, how it was handled. It helps validate authenticity and integrity.
So it backs up your documentation, proves you didn't mess up during collection.
Exactly. But, important note, it doesn't guarantee someone didn't tamper with it after it was collected. And it's definitely not a data backup strategy. It's purely for documenting the acquisition itself.
Right. This all sounds incredibly thorough, but man, the amount of data must be huge. How do teams even start to sift through it all efficiently?
That is a major challenge. And yeah, tools and techniques are crucial, like deduplication, especially in e-discovery.
Deduplication, removing duplicates.
Exactly. It finds and gets rid of identical copies of files in your evidence set, the big win.
Right.
It massively shrinks the pile of data analysts have to actually review. Makes the whole process faster, more manageable.
But it doesn't find the important files for you.
No, not at all. It just removes the redundant copies. It doesn't help with relevance, doesn't inherently make things confidential, and it certainly doesn't prevent tampering with the original files. It's purely about reducing volume.
Okay. And then there are SIEM tools. These seem to pop up everywhere in security discussions.
Times. Yeah, security information and event management, they're kind of like the central nervous system for security data.
How so?
They pull in logs and event data from everywhere, network gear, servers, firewalls, applications, you name it. Then they correlate it, try to find patterns, and give you a consolidated view, often through dashboards, alerts.
The single pane of glass idea.
That's the one. It gives you that broad overview of what's happening across your environment. Super helpful for daily incident response, spotting anomalies, seeing connections you might miss otherwise.
So it's different from just looking at, say, firewall logs or a vulnerability scan.
Oh yeah, a vulnerability scanner looks for weaknesses. Application logs tell you about one app. A host IDS watches one machine. A SIEM tries to bring all those different signals together into one coherent picture.
So the SIEM helps you see the bigger picture, connect the dots across different systems, makes detection and response easier.
Precisely. You get that holistic view of network devices, server activity, everything talking to everything else. Much more powerful than just looking at the Windows event viewer on one PC, or raw syslog data without correlation, or even just bits of metadata in isolation.
Okay, powerful tools, but what are analysts actually looking for in all this data? Any specific red flags Lesson 12 mentions?
Yeah, it gives a good example with wireless networks. If you suddenly see a ton of disassociation events in your access point logs devices getting kicked off the network, that could strongly suggest someone's trying a wireless attack.
And in that case, router logs or switch logs wouldn't be as helpful?
Probably not as directly helpful for that specific indicator. The AP logs are ground zero for Wi-Fi connection issues. The other logs tell different stories. It highlights knowing where to look for specific threat types.
Makes sense. What about looking back after something happened, trying to reconstruct the attack?
That's where something called retrospective network analysis, or RNA, is really useful.
RNA, okay. What does it do?
Basically, it involves recording all the network traffic, often headers, and sometimes the full data packets, the payload, over a period. Then, after an incident, you can go back and analyze that recording in detail.
Like rewinding a security camera for the network?
Kinda, yeah. It lets you see exactly what tools the attacker might have used, track if they pulled data out, see if they talked to suspicious websites or servers. It's incredibly detailed.
How's that different from other network monitoring?
Well, it's more comprehensive than just getting high-level summaries of protocols used. It's deeper than what a SIEM usually stores for packets, which is often just selected bits. And it's different from sensor-based recording, which might only capture traffic that triggers a specific rule, not everything. RNA aims for totality, for that deep dives later.
Gotcha. And when looking at files themselves, Not just network traffic. What about metadata?
Ah, file metadata.
Mm.
Often overlooked, but super useful. It's the data about the data.
Like,
Things like when the file was created, last accessed, last modified, who has permissions to it, sometimes even extended details added by programs. It can tell you a lot about a file's history, how it was used, maybe even hints about attacker activity without even opening the file itself.
and that's different from metadata on websites or emails.
Totally different. Web metadata is about browser-server communication. Email headers track the email's journey. Social media metadata is specific to platforms. File metadata is embedded within the file system's information about that specific file.
This is fascinating, but honestly, it sounds exhausting. Constantly watching all this data, all these alerts. How do analysts not just burn out or get, I don't know, numb to it all?
That's a huge, huge problem. It's called alert fatigue.
Alert fatigue makes sense.
Yeah. You get bombarded with so many alerts, especially low priority ones or ones that turn out to be nothing false positives. After a while, your brain just starts tuning them out.
And then you miss the big one.
Exactly. The critical alert gets lost in the noise. It drastically reduces how effective your monitoring actually is. I've seen it happen. Good analysts miss things because they're just overwhelmed. It's a serious operational risk.
So what's the fix? How do you combat alert fatigue?
The main strategy is alert tuning. It's an ongoing process.
Tuning, like tuning a guitar.
Sort of. You refine the rules that generate the alerts. Adjust the thresholds, the parameters. The goal is to make the alerts more precise, more accurate. Cut down drastically on the false positives so the alerts that do fire are more likely to be meaningful and actionable.
So less noise, more signal.
That's the idea. It's about improving the quality of the alerts, not just having more of them. It's distinct from threat hunting that's proactive searching, not reacting to alerts. And it's the solution to false positives, which are the symptom, the inaccurate alerts themselves.
Okay, tuning makes alerts more reliable. And just quickly, to place other tools, application monitors, vulnerability scanners, system monitors, DLP tools, they're not focused on this alert fatigue problem specifically.
Right. Their primary jobs are different. App monitors watch application health and performance. Vulnerability scanners find system weaknesses. System monitors watch host resources like CPU and memory. And DLP data loss prevention tries to stop sensitive data from leaving. They all generate alerts, sure, but their core function isn't managing the overall alert quality like tuning is. They contribute to the alert volume, which is why tuning them is also important.
Wow, okay, this has been incredibly clarifying. We've covered a ton, from the incident lifecycle to the nitty-gritty of evidence and alerts. If you had to boil it down, what are the absolute key takeaways for our listeners?
I'd say really understand that CompTIA lifecycle prep. Detect, analyze, contain, eradicate, recover, lessons learned. Each step matters. Remember, digital forensics and evidence integrity are non-negotiable. And finally, security monitoring isn't just about collecting data, it's about managing it effectively to avoid that alert fatigue through tuning. Proactive threat hunting complements this, but the response cycle is crucial when things go wrong.
Absolutely. Hopefully everyone listening had a few of those aha moments. Maybe this whole complex world of incident response feels a little less overwhelming now.
That's the goal.
So here's something to chew on. Thinking about everything we discussed, the response steps, the evidence handling, the monitoring challenges, what's the one single area you think your organization, or maybe one you're thinking about, needs to focus on most right now to boost its security?
Good question to ponder. Where's the biggest gap or opportunity for improvement?
Exactly. Food for thought. We'll definitely be back with more deep dives into tech. Thanks for tuning in.